it's really cool to flip a house and get a 6-figure paycheck on it and, buy rental properties, and it's great and it is fulfilling, but there's nothing more fulfilling than helping someone do it, seeing it, how it changes their trajectory. Like you said, from your private money clients that came back to you and said, I'm able to, travel now, see my grandkids all the time. Man, seeing what I've been able to be a small part in and help people with changing their whole financial future, breaking generational curses, being able to be the person that helped them buy their first home when no one in their home has ever bought, in their family's ever bought a home before. It is extremely, extremely gratifying. And that's why I keep doing it. It's just, I think everyone needs to know about this, and I'm going to keep helping people as long as I can to make sure that they could do the same.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
Let me ask you a question. What if the deal was not the problem? What if the money isn't the problem? What if you've just been looking in the wrong place for deals? Because right now, most real estate investors are stuck. Sellers want retail, banks want massive down payments, and every quote unquote no money down strategy you see online is overcrowded and overhyped. My guest today figured out a different path. Over 4 years of trying and failing at the usual real estate investing strategies, Matthew Porcaro discovered a little-known government-backed renovation loan that completely changed the game. He used it to do a live-in flip. That's right, a live-in flip with just $9,500 out of his pocket, turned that into $130,000 in equity, and locked in a $2,000 a month in positive cash flow, and did all that in under 8 months. No private equity fund, no conventional mortgages, just smart leverage and the right structure. That experience led him to create the 203K way, where he's now helped hundreds of investors acquire high equity, cash flowing properties with as little as 3.5% down payment using renovation loan products most real estate investors don't even know exist. Now, if you want to expand how you think about funding deals, raising private money without chasing hard money lenders, this episode is going to open your eyes. In just a moment, you're going to meet my friend and guest, Matthew Porcaro, right after this. Matthew, welcome to the show, my friend.
Jay, thanks so much, man. I feel like a WWE guy running out of the backstage with the way you introduced me, man. Thank you for that. It was like a Bruce Buffer type intro. I'm a big fan. Thanks for having me. It's an honor, man.
Well, it's an honor to have you on the show. We've got many dear, good mutual friends. Tom Kroll with Coaching Inc., Darren Bentley, Family Mastermind. I mean, you hang around some pretty go-giving, very, very smart people. Now, you have funded your deals in all kinds of ways. Mm-hmm. You've raised over $500,000 in private money. You've also used hard money in the past. And on this show and episode, we're really going to dive deep on how you've used the 203 strategy. So how about this? Let's start, since the name of this show is Raising Private Money. Mm-hmm. Let's start with the private money.
Sure.
So first of all, you can use private money. And by the way, folks, when we're talking private money, you all know by now, we're not talking hard money. I'm not poo-pooing hard money. Some of my best friends are hard money lending brokers. But private money is my expertise, and Matthew's raised it as well. There's 20 reasons why I love private money. Puts you in control. You're offering an opportunity instead of chasing and selling and persuading and all that type of thing. But you've raised over $500,000, Matthew, in private money. How did you go about raising that money, and what type of deals did you raise it for?
Yeah, so great question. The way I raised it was very simply by earning some respect first, which I feel like I didn't have in my crazy New York market. And then going on and realizing actually that I needed less experience than I thought. Like many of us do, I had imposter syndrome when I first got into real estate investing. I had done only one deal, my 203K deal, which obviously we'll talk more about. But I did only one deal, and I used that money from my first deal, and I leveraged it into the next one, and then I was trying to scale up, and I remember speaking to a mentor of mine, and him telling me, I was just telling him, and he's like, all right, so what are your plans for the next one? And I told him, well, like, I'm going to wait until this flip is done, and then I'm going to take that and go, try to leverage it into something bigger. And he's like, why are you using your own money? I'm like, I don't know. No one ever told me I couldn't. For someone that I didn't come from money, my parents never said the word investing in our house. Super blue collar. We struggled with money really growing up. So even the idea that I could raise money, number one, it seemed impossible to me. It also seemed like I wasn't worthy of raising money, to be 100% honest with you. So when he told me that, I didn't believe him. He also told me that if you look at your cell phone, in your phone book, there's probably $1 million to $2 million in there right now, ready to go, ready for you to raise. And I said, no, all my friends are broke. All my family's doesn't come from money. There's no way that I'm going to be able to raise the capital that you're saying. Fast forward, he said, humor me. And, he told me to, and we could get more into it, but he basically told me to go hit up my phone book and talk about my most recent deal that I just did, and say, something to the effect of, well, I remember the script, so I'll just say it. It was basically like, hey, Jay, what's up? It's Matt. I know it's been a little bit. You saw I posted on Facebook. I've been really doing the real estate thing. I actually have 2 or 3 more deals coming up. You wouldn't happen to know anyone that's looking to make about 10 to 12% on their money in the next 6 months, would you? And to my disbelief, that actually helped me raise, pretty much all the gap money that I needed on future projects from then going forward. And I never, ever had trouble raising money from there on out, because it did 2 things. Number one, it made me realize that people didn't really need to look to me to see how. And when I first started out, they weren't really curious on how much I've done, and they just were more impressed that I did it. And I had a rap sheet to show them. I had people around me that knew what they were doing. I had built, a good team around me. So that's the first thing. But secondly, I think what's interesting about that was I was never directly, I think, like you even just said, like your rules about private money is, I wasn't begging for it, right? I was more or less just saying, hey, do you know anybody that'd be willing to invest? Now, as you would probably assume and probably know, most people that said that, that I said that to, were like, well, I actually got some money, or I have something, or can tell me more about that, and schedule a meeting and get going. So my first couple of private money lenders were friends of the family. And I'll be honest too, it was usually the people I didn't expect. But one of the things I was told when I started down this process was that, never have any bias to who you think has some capital they would love to deploy or not. It could be the people you least expect, and often it is. So I used that when I got into this. I'm in New York, so where I'm at, properties are very expensive, and raising even private money to kind of get the $500,000-$600,000 that I need was still a lot. So the way I did it and the way I used it and continue to use it is for basically the gap between other financing options like I have, like hard money, DSCR funding, whatever it is, to kind of come up with that down payment or that extra capital that I would need if I need it, right? So it's always been there as an option where I can get it. And as you said, get it very quickly at this point. And what I realized with it is once you do one, it keeps coming back and you do it successfully. The only thing I've always focused on since then is making sure that I care about their money more than my own. So I always make sure that when I take it on, I'm the best shepherd I possibly could be with it, because, and I tell that to my lenders as well. Like, I get paid last on every transaction. So I make sure you get paid. Everyone else gets paid before me. If there's nothing left over for me, so be it. That's on me. But that's how I've been able to do it, and continue to be able to go out and raise every time I had to.
Your story is so similar to my story as to when I started raising private money. My first 6 years, and I focus on single family houses. My first 6 years here in Eastern North Carolina, all I knew was traditional financing and funding. The local bank, local line of credit, mortgages. That's all I knew until I woke up one day and I was cut off from the banks with no notice to me in January of 2009. So I knew I had to find a better and quicker way to fund my deals. And my very first potential private lender that I talked to, and by the way, Carol Joy, my wife, and I, we've had 47 private lenders, and not one of them had ever heard of private money or private lending or self-directed IRAs until I put on my teacher hat, which says private money teacher. They'd never heard of this world. So as a result, I was viewed as the expert and the authority on offering this type of opportunity that they never heard of. But my story is so similar to yours because my very first potential private lender I talked to, his name was Wayne, and I wasn't going to ask him for money. I went to ask him for help. And I said, Wayne, I need your help. I said, I'm now paying insane high rates of returns to my investors and my private lenders and my deals. And when you run across somebody that's complaining about the volatility of the stock market and making no money in the local bank, would you refer them to me? And of course, you know what Wayne said. The same thing most of your people said. They said, well, what you got going on there? What kind of rate are you paying? And then, there comes the conversation. And by, with that approach, I was able to raise over $2 million my first 90 days by just simply asking people for help and to spread the word. And so I'm not surprised that your initial experience and story with private money is the same as mine, particularly when you take on the right mindset. I want to talk about mindset here in just a moment. But since we're talking about private money, I want to let our entire audience know just coming up right around the corner in a few weeks is the Private Money Conference, the Private Money Conference. And Sharub, if you'll switch out that URL, I want to give a special URL out that gives our audience $3,000 tickets for only a $97 registration fee. And that URL is www.jayconner, and I'm an ER, not an OR, JAYCONNER.com/event. jayconner.com/event. And be sure and check out the in-person Private Money Conference to learn what that is all about. Back to us, Matthew, the mindset, so important from my own experience on attracting and raising private money. You mentioned you grew up in a home that didn't talk about money, maybe didn't have a good relationship with money, never talked about investing, blue collar, all that. Sounds like a very, very respectable American home life to grow up in. Hardworking, sounds like, middle income family, etc. Did you have to go through a mind shift in your mindset and the way you thought about money and that type of thing as you started investing in real estate and attracting private money lenders?
Jay, can I tell you the truth?
I hope so.
I still am going through that, right? And the reason I say that is because one of the biggest things we talk about mindset, right? What we don't realize is, and what I've realized over time is, to no fault of my parents, right? We talk about, I didn't come from money, but many people don't. And I love my parents to death. I mean, thank God they gave me what I needed. And like you said, they just didn't have the understanding. It's not, no one ever taught them. And they, my dad was a hardworking guy. He had his own construction business. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, right? So they did the best they can with what they had. But at the same time, growing up, there's a lot of subconscious stuff that gets put in your head that you realize as you get older becomes really hard to break.
It's called programming.
Yeah. And I think, I think And the reason I share this, because you talk about mindset, and the shift for me, it was never a pivotal moment. I mean, there's a couple points, and I'll make one or two, but I think for everybody, it's like, depending on where you come from, it's always an evolving process, right? It's your relationship with money and investing and real estate has to evolve with time. And you can't expect it that, not so much that it doesn't happen for some people, but for me, it was never like a light bulb switch. It was a culmination of observations I made throughout my life. And I think, the first big one is when I was young, seeing that it seemed like money related conversations were generally the cause of stress and anxiety in my house growing up. Right. So as a young 6-7-year-old kid, like you said, that programming gets in my subconscious brain that probably doesn't even understand money yet, is just being labeled with, hey, money causes stress, or if there's a lot of it, it causes happiness. And it just made that wire. Right. So you take that and you run with that over time, and you get told constantly by your parents, hey, Matt, you're going to go to school, get a good job, get good grades, go work for a big company, go climb the corporate ladder, and, do that thing. So I did that. And I wasn't a good student by any means. I just want to be clear about that. I got by the skin of my teeth in a lot of cases. But I just kind of had that programming where, hey, go get a good job, go do that. And I work here in New York, got a job in New York City, by many people's standards, which was respectable and what people aspire to. But that being said, Jay, I got into the rat race, we'll call it. And it's definitely a rat race in New York City. I was commuting 3 hours a day, hour and a half back and forth from, the suburbs to New York City every day. And was realizing very quickly that this isn't how people get rich either, right? What my parents thought was how people, are financially free isn't really the way that made sense to me. So, I ended up doing a lot of research myself, because I am very inquisitive, and, was reading a lot about how do people get rich and blah, blah, blah. And, I ended up reading a book, which probably no one's ever heard of before, called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's funny because it seems almost so cliche at that point. How many lives it's changed. I know it's changed mine. For a kid in my situation, working class, growing up, where the word investing was never even mentioned, that book is a life-changing, mind-altering book. It started with that. But as I said before, it didn't end with that. It continues every day. I always try to remember back and put myself back on how do I make sure my spending habits correlate with what I'm trying to do in real estate in every aspect of my life, right? Just because I'm investing in real estate, how do I diversify it? But that was the big level. I think the other big aha moment for me with regards to real estate and investing in general was realizing that there's so much more money out there willing to be lent than you think. And we think that money is the problem, and money's not the problem. It's everything else. And not to say nothing, there's all different problems. But what I realized was, when you have the right people, you have the right deal flow, you have the right intention, you could present something good. There's more money. I read somewhere, I think it was like a Dan Pena book, who, Dan Pena, maybe he's crazy old dude, but he's a maniac, but he's very divisive, but he wrote a book called Your First 100 Million. And I think it said somewhere in the book that there's way more money willing to be lent currently than there is in circulation, like tenfold. And I thought that was a crazy stat to think of. Like, there's plenty of funding out there. You just need to bring people the right stuff. And when you have the right stuff, the financing actually becomes the easy part, or the part with the least amount of resistance. Is how do you find the right team, have the right systems to deploy it, have the right people around you, and bring the right investments and opportunities to the people that are looking to invest in it.
I've been saying the same thing for years in different words, and that is, there's more money available than there are deals.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's an easier way to say it probably than Dan Payne.
And the reason I know that is that I've got more private money, what I call sitting on the shelf, meaning it's been pledged to me. They want me to put it to work. But it's there's more money than there are deals. Now, I'll tell you, when I had my mindset shift, hadn't been raising private money too long, but Carol Joy, my wife, and I, we received a handwritten note in the mail that thanked us for being a part of changing their retirement years. This was a couple that was, living off of retirement. They had some money in the stock market, but they're very conservative. And when we started paying them 8%, not 10%, not 12%, but 8%, it changed their retirement years in a way to when they said in that letter, we have been able to travel back and forth to Florida I'm in North Carolina, back and forth to Florida to visit our grandchildren as often as we want to without worrying about money. That's when I had the light bulb go off in my head to where what I'm offering in this opportunity is just as important, if not more important, to them than it is for the funding of my deals. And so it's all about creating these win-win-win scenarios. My dad just turned 92 years old, Wallace
God
Calmer.
bless. Amazing.
He's developing a 350 new home build development right now at 92 years old.
Oh, I love
it. One of these days I'm going to say, Dad, can't we leave the office and just go home? Anyway, he's wide open. And Dad told me many times decades ago, he said, Jay, if everybody cannot win and everybody doesn't have some meat left on the bone, don't do the deal.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. It's not a zero-sum game. Everyone could win.
Absolutely. And there's plenty, and with the abundance mindset, there's plenty to go around for everybody. So in the short time that we've been visiting, Matthew, I sense something. Tell me if I sense something correctly. Would you call yourself spiritually motivated and faith-based?
It's funny you say that. I was brought up in a Catholic, very religious household. I went to Catholic high school, and I'll be honest. I keep saying that to you. I'm an honest guy, but I guess I'll be frank. When you go to Catholic high school, when you're a teenager, you kind of go against the grain, right? You want to be a contrarian. You want to go against it. And I steered away from my faith for a bit. And I would even say just recently, I started seeing it more and more work its way back into my life. And it's been an incredible kind of, I don't want to sound cliche, but awakening for me. I realized that there's so much more to life than the secular stuff. And as I've been looking into it more and more, it's not, no matter what you believe in, right? Everyone has, some, maybe, I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people have faith from every different, part of the world and culture and belief. But I think what I hang my head on the most when it comes to faith and spirituality is knowing that this is just bigger than me, man. Like it's okay to confide in, a greater being, God, Jesus, and just kind of submitting to the fact that it's bigger than us. What happens, things don't happen to us, they happen for us. And how you take that and kind of that, I don't know, man, it's really, really awakening for someone, again, that's new to exploring his faith like myself. It's very, I don't even know the word. Liberating is maybe not the right one, but liberating in the sense of knowing that when you go out there, that this is bigger than you, that there is a plan for you. And, that you're never going to have all the answers, but the answers will come to you in their own perfect way, in their own perfect time has been a big life changer for me. I'm a dad of 2 young kids, 2 and a 4-year-old, happily married and becoming more and more of a provider in my life, working harder and harder. It's been a blessing to kind of tap back into my faith and know that I'm not alone in this. And I don't have to have all the answers all the time, right? Sometimes being like kind of an A-type, alpha type role, sometimes just like feeling like you always have to have all the answers and everything needs to be secular. No, it doesn't. You could trust in the Lord. You can trust in, the universe to know that you're going to end up where you need to be as long as you're a good steward of whatever you got in front of you.
You just said something that resonated with me, and you said that is realizing that I'm not alone. I'm not in this by myself. And there's something bigger than me, That reminds me of a short story I'll share. And then we're going to dig into this 203K way of funding that everybody's been waiting to hear about.
Sure.
But not long ago, I was riding with a dear friend here in town, and we'd gone to get coffee or whatever. And out of the blue, he said, of course, and he knows what I do, real estate investing, and also, teach real estate investors how to raise private money. As a result, Carol Joy and I travel the nation all the time, speaking at events and, Zoom trainings and stuff. And so out of the blue, my friend says, Jay, let me ask you a question. I said, okay. He said, when is enough enough? And I said, well, I think I know what you're asking, but let me dive in. I said, how can you say that a different way? When is enough enough? He said, well, he said, Jay, he says, and I know you all don't have to be working as hard as you are and, doing all the traveling and, the real estate investing and the coaching and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He said, how do you reconcile the Apostle Paul saying to be content with whatever station of life you are in and whatever circumstance you find yourself in, to be content? I said, now I understand the question. And I said, it's a great question. And I said, here's the answer to when is enough enough? And the answer is enough is never enough when it's not about you. When it's not about you, enough is never enough. Let's dive into this 203K way.
I love it. Great foray too.
That you've pulled a community together on, Matthew.
Yeah.
So you got the 203K loan. It's a government loan. So walk us through, how does this 203K thing work?
Sure. So like you said, it's a government-backed loan. It's an FHA product. We've all heard of FHA before. And if you haven't, FHA is the government-backed federal home buying, actually insurance program, right? So the government doesn't lend you the money, but it insures the money. Basically, all it is it allows home buyers to buy a house for only 3.5% down, has the, we'll call it the easiest requirements in terms of getting a mortgage. And the whole point of this program was to get more people into houses, because while the United States, government maybe doesn't do everything right by any means, and many governments don't, they do understand the importance of the housing market in the United States. They understand that, like you said, you're a single family investor. Single family home ownership is the core of the fabric of our society. It really is the American dream. We call it whatever it is. Having a piece of the pie is so important. So FHA is this low down payment government backed program to help more people get into homes, right? Makes financing very favorable, allows more people to get in. The 203K version is their renovation rehab portion. So what it does is it allows you, just like the two FHA mortgages, it allows you to get all the money to purchase the house. But in addition to that, it gives you all the money to renovate it that you need for the renovation budget. Plus it gives you the ability to wrap in closing costs. You're able to wrap in up to the first 12 months mortgage payments into the loan, so you don't have to make a payment on it out of pocket while you're renovating it. So essentially what it is it's a great way to get yourself started into the game. And rather than buy a house that's move-in ready and kind of just, make your mortgage payment every 30 days for 30 years, the way I looked at it as an opportunity. Well, if I looked at it through the eyes of an investor, how do I get myself started with I don't own a house yet. How do I get my first house to be a nest egg that I could build equity with, build some cash flow with using house hacking, which we could talk more about. But basically, buy your first home, use the bank's money to renovate it, build some equity for yourself, and then take that equity and go buy more. So it's a low risk, low down payment strategy that was effectively what got me off the ground in a really tough market here in New York.
So 203K, first of all, is for primary residence, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to use, if you're a real estate investor, you're not going to use a 203K mortgage to fund a flip or a buy and hold.
Unless you plan on living there for a short amount of time.
I was going to say, unless you do XYZ. So talk about that, Matthew. How can this be a long-term strategy? And what's the shortest amount of time you have to live there as your primary residence before you could start like renting it out? Because your first one, when you started, in less than 8 months, you were having a $2,000 a month positive cash flow.
Yeah, exactly. So, so the way I think of the 203K and the 203K way, as I call it, which the 203K way, and that, neon sign that my wife and son got me a couple of years ago for Christmas, is the 203K way is my way that I broke into the real estate investing game. I tried for many years breaking into the game, hit every roadblock you could think of, wasn't seeing any results with anything. I was trying to flip houses with no money and trying to raise capital without any experience. And I should have probably known you before that, and you would have helped me a little better with that. But I didn't do too well with it on my own. But the long and short of it was the 203K was basically my slingshot into real estate investing, because it gave me the starting point. It was basically like flipping a house with training wheels on, because it only needed a little bit of money. I only needed a little bit of my money. I took $9,500 down. And what I was able to do was buy a 2-family house. Now, this 2-family house was next to the train tracks, right next door to a church. I knew from the beginning that this wasn't going to be my forever home, but I knew it was going to be a stepping stone. So
this was a duplex.
Yes.
Like in one house, you got 2 homes.
Yep, exactly.
Right? And you call it in New York something different than a duplex.
No, we call it a duplex or 2-family.
Okay.
Yeah. I know everywhere across the country usually has different names, but one of the beautiful things that I actually learned pretty much by accident about these programs is these FHA loans and 203K loans subsequently allow you to buy up to a 4-unit property with only 3.5% down. So even living in New York, having a decent job, still could not afford a house in New York on my own salary. I was making maybe $70,000 a year at that time. And I got pre-approved for $250,000 or $260,000, which is laughable in New York. You can't even buy land really for that.
Or an outhouse.
But yeah, exactly. So on its own, I was really struggling. I was placing a lot of offers on things, but real estate agents were laughing at me, saying, "Good luck, kid, not here." And so I was really struggling with that. And when I was looking for more, I actually found out from my loan originator at the time. He sent me one of these properties. He sent me this 2-family, and it was run down. They were selling drugs out of the front window. They kind of condemned it a little bit. It was pretty beat up. And he sent it to me, and I'm like, "Hey man, I can't buy that. That was over my budget. It was like $280,000. He said, "No, what's cool about this loan is it's a 2-family property. Now, what that means is you're going to have a tenant in there, right? That tenant's going to be paying you every month." Now, the good news with New York is, as much as it's competitive and really high priced, the rents are very high too. So because of that other unit in the house was a 3-bedroom unit, and I was able to rent that out for $2,500 a month. So the lender is able to take that future $2,500 a month and forecast it to your approval. So what that did for me was that raised my approval about $100,000. Now, all of a sudden, not only did I have enough money in my approval to buy the house, but I also had all the money I needed to renovate it. So I bought the house for $270,000. I wrapped in $80,000 of renovation budget, plus the first 6 months mortgage payments and the closing costs all into the loan. So after my down payment, I put $9,500 down. I was all in for like $356,000, we'll call it, on the loan amount, and used the bank's money to completely renovate and upgrade the house. 8 months later, I got done, got it reappraised. It reappraised for actually initially 480, but then I got another reappraisal 3 months after and reappraised for 510. So I built over 160, $170,000 in equity off of 9,500 bucks. Now, the best part of it was I was living in one unit, renting out the other to tenants. My mortgage payment was only 2,900 a month, and I was getting 2,500 a month from one of the tenants. So I was
you're living in New York City for 400 bucks a month.
Right outside of it, but yeah, which is unheard of, right? So most importantly, though, it gave me the stepping stone. Now I had equity that I was able to leverage. Now I most importantly had experience, right? I had a track record. I could show people. If people ask me what I've done before, I showed it to them. If hard money lenders ask me, banks ask me, what do I have? What's on my asset sheet? I had something, right? And that was ultimately what was the springboard into the next. But the power in it is again, a couple of things. Number one is the ability to get all the renovation covered, right? You don't have to pay out of pocket with anything with the renovation costs. Also the power with it is you're able to buy multi-unit properties. Now, actually, as of this year, we'll call it last year. As of last year, the government's actually pushing what they call accessory units. So a lot of single family homes they're zoned for single family, but there is a housing shortage in most parts of the United States. So what they've been doing is you've heard of mother-in-law suites or granny suites or stuff like that. What they're doing is with these lenders, they're saying, hey, listen, we really need some affordable housing for people. If you have a granny suite or you can convert into a granny suite, we now will forecast the income of that mother-in-law suite or granny suite or accessory unit, they call it, as well. So now I call them my hidden duplexes. Basically, virtually almost any single family house with the right setup can act as a two-family in any part of the country right now. So for dang near any home buyer that's in there that wants to buy a house and wants to subsidize their mortgage payment every month by having someone else pay them to live in it, you have all this opportunity to do this. And with the 203K, if it doesn't exist, you can use the funds to make it and then get that to be a cash flowing property while you live there.
Matthew, I got more questions that I got to ask, but before I ask them, in case any of our listeners or audience have got to jump off, you are the expert when it comes to the 203K way, house hacking. You've got $160,000 in equity in 8 months, positive cash flow. Went on to the next one. How can our listeners and audience get in contact with you to learn more about this amazing strategy that, quite frankly, in my circles, I don't know anybody else out there coaching or teaching on it, because you got hundreds of students that you've helped learn how to do this. Go ahead and give out your contact info.
Yeah. So my best place to find me is my Instagram. So that's where I hang out the most. I answer all the messages. So Instagram.com/the203K way. You could just Google the 203K way and you'll find me on Instagram. My website is the203kway.com. My YouTube channel is the only place where I'm not the 203K way. It's just my name. So YouTube/@Matt Porcaro. But, you could find me anywhere. And as you said, not many people talk about this. And there's a lot of reasons why, which we could get into in another one. But I just realized when I did this and did it successfully, I just could not believe that agents and lenders don't talk about it. I had gone from a kid that was struggling so much, couldn't find a way in, to getting through this, looking at the 150,000 in equity I built, having a place to live that I was basically paid for. I mean, I now rent it out for I still have that property. It's a cash cow for me. I have $400,000 of equity in that thing now, but just think about, with so little out of pocket, with no experience, what I was able to do. I just couldn't believe that more people don't talk about it. And you talk about when enough is enough. And it's when everyone else around me, it's enough for them. And it's kind of like, from that day forward, I'll never forget. I got the final approval from the inspector. I was smelling the new paint on the walls and smelling the new hardwood floors. And I'm just looking around and I'm like, man, why do more people not know about this? And I truly felt a calling in that moment. I'm like, if lenders and agents aren't going to talk about it, I'm just going to start talking to my phone online, start posting videos about it. And I did. And sure enough, people people heard the call, and it's been amazing. And I've been really blessed to help so many people over the years since I've been doing it.
That's awesome. So again, contact information for Matthew is his Instagram.com/the THE 203K way, the 203K way. You can Google him at the 203K way. You'll find him. His website is the203kway.com. You definitely want to connect there with Matthew. A couple more questions before I let you go, Matthew, because this is just so intriguing. If you got a couple more minutes for questions.
Of course. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Excellent. So as far as that mortgage, how does someone do they have to find a local FHA mortgage broker or loan originator? Do they need to find a 203K mortgage lending expert? What is your advice that you give to people that want to go find somebody that's licensed in their area to do this mortgage?
Sure. So it's a big one. What you said, and you know what you're doing, right? So that is one of the biggest swinging hinges on this process, right? The reality is most lenders maybe can do them, but most lenders should not do them. Okay. It's like anything else in life. If you specialize in it, it's going to be a lot easier, a lot simpler, right? If I need heart surgery, right? God forbid, if I need heart surgery, I don't go to my primary care doctor physician for the heart surgery, right? I go to a specialist, right? And the reason I go to the specialist is because a heart surgeon, now the doctor might be qualified to do some surgery and they can do it. They're a generalist. But if I want someone that's going to work on me, I want the person that's going to always work on me, right? Another good example I say is, I have a Porsche, and if I want to bring my Porsche, I could bring it to a regular mechanic, a regular gas station. If I need an oil change, could a regular mechanic do the oil change on my car? Probably. But would I rather the mechanic that only works on Porsches to work on my Porsche, right? So the same rules apply for this. How do you find these lenders? At the end of the day, they do exist out there. There's lenders out there that specialize in renovation financing. The biggest red flag is usually if they say, oh, we can do that, or we've done it before, right? I've tiled a bathroom before. Jay, you wouldn't want me to tile your bathroom. Okay.
I promise you don't want me to tile your bathroom.
Right. Exactly. Can I do it? Sure. Do you want me to do it? Absolutely not. Right. So the idea here is there's a lot of different lenders out there. Now, obviously, I've been lucky enough over the years to build a network of those. If anyone listening, you could go to the 203kway.com/lender, and that'll put you in contact with my lending team and my lending partners that specialize in this type of financing. But even if, let's just say you're local, it doesn't have to be local in your market. Like my lending team covers all 50 states. Lending, especially mortgage lending at this point, for residential mortgages.
So Matthew, you've got lending partners.
Yes, we absolutely.
Well, they don't need to look anywhere else.
No, they don't. But I always like to keep them honest. And even if one of my partners come out there and do talk with them, the biggest thing I always say is no matter who you're talking to, you should feel like this is not something that they do, like that they can do. It's something that they do, if that makes sense, right? It's something that absolutely they specialize in it. You don't want to leave this up to someone that's never done it before, because if you do, it will go a little haywire.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, it's like, should a real estate investor that has never borrowed private money go out there and do it by themselves?
No.
No, right? No.
Yep.
So, same with you. If someone's interested in this 203K way mortgage financing, primary residence, house hack it for a few months, get a bunch of equity, move on. Then for goodness sakes, get in contact with Matthew. He's already got the lending contacts.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more question, because it's just an intriguing topic.
Yeah.
And that is, you've got your 3.5% down payment.
Mm-hmm.
That's required there. My question is, when it comes to the renovation part, I assume that an appraiser would have to give the lender an after repaired value appraisal I'll repeat that. An after repaired value appraisal, not a as is appraisal, in order for the lender to know what's the maximum that they can lend out on this project.
Jay, you nailed it. Now, the sad part is most loan officers don't even know that, but you know it. So it just goes to show you what you could run into sometimes. Yes, you're absolutely right. And this is, you ready to have your mind blown? This is kind of, for a real estate investor, it's going to blow your mind. Okay.
Blow my mind.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. They go after the after renovated value. So when the appraiser goes up, so the process goes like this, right? You find a property, you get it under contract. Okay. Someone comes out called a 203K consultant. It sounds scarier and bigger than it is. What it is they're a home inspector. So just like when you buy a house and you buy a home and the first thing that happens is an inspection, right? A regular arm's length transaction, right? The first thing that happens is an inspection. In this, it's a 203 HUD consultant inspection. Pretty much all 203K consultants are home inspectors. They just also have this other feather in their hat, which is 203K consultant, where what they do is they look at everything that needs to be done and repaired in the house. They write up a scope of work of what needs to be repaired. And then they also talk to you, the borrower, and they say, hey, Jay, what do you want to do to the house? Here's what needs to be fixed. Roof needs to be fixed. You got to replace the windows. You got to update the electrical. What do you want to do? You're like, hey, you know what, Matt? I want to upgrade the kitchen. I want to redo the kitchen, add new cabinets, new countertops. I want to add a bedroom in the back part of the house and, change the siding. The consultant writes up a whole scope of work for you. Right. So that's the beauty of it is contractors hate writing scopes of work. People don't know how to write a scope of work, but this consultant, this inspector is writing that up for you. So that's very clear for you to have. Now that what they use, now that you have that scope of work and you bid that out to a contractor agrees on that scope of work. The contractor could be any licensed and insured contractor. There's no such thing as a certified contractor. It's a myth that gets perpetuated. Licensed, insured, and experience, right? Not just someone that just flies by the seat of their pants, right? The contractor, you come to an agreement, contractor gets the final say on the number. That number goes to the bank. The bank then sends out the appraiser. So the appraiser goes out with that scope of work and they see, okay, here's the house in its current condition, but what's actually going to happen? So I'm not going to appraise it based on that. I'm going to look at what you're going to do. Okay, you're going to have everything brand new. You're adding, 200 square foot off the back. And then they're going to do, as you said, what's called a subject to appraisal. They're looking on the ARV. Now, here's the part that's going to blow your mind. 203K will lend you 110% of ARV. They will let you over leverage the loan by 10%. Now, obviously,
so I got to tell my listeners, if you're taking a nap, and of course you're driving in your car, you're not taking a nap. But if you're sitting around or you're on a walk or whatever, you want to wake up to what Matthew just said, 110% of after repaired value. Why do they want to do that?
So, great question. The reason they want to do that is simple, right? They're lending to an owner occupant, right? So they know that if you're going to buy a house, you want to make it nice for you and your family, and there's a good chance that you're going to stay in it for a bit, right? They know that there's some staying power. You're probably not going to go through all this work to stay in it, for a short time. Now, if you look at it through the eyes of an investor, like I said, you probably won't want to do that. But on the flip side of that, the point I'm making with it is you have a lot of leverage to build in closing costs, build in mortgage payments. So the other thing too is when they know you're going to buy a house, they have it built in where maybe you're not going to be able to pay for two places to live at once. Now, I was lucky. My parents still liked me and I was able to live in their basement for no cost, basically. And I was able to still wrap in the payment. So I didn't have to pay for a house that I couldn't live in out of pocket. The beauty there with that leverage point is use it to your advantage to keep money in your pocket, not to over leverage the financing. We don't want to do that. We've all learned from that, I think, many times in the last 20 years, 30 years, right? But the reason they do it that way is that. Now, the way that I see it working the best is, again, number one, if you feel real good about this property for long term, right? If it is a multi-unit and it's going to be a cash cow for you and you're going to hold it for long term, well, wrap in your closing costs, wrap in your mortgage payments, wrap in that stuff into the loan, because let the future value of the property keep money in your pocket today, right? I'm a big believer in my dollar's worth more today than it's ever going to be worth, no matter what. It's always going to lose value. So I want to hedge inflation by doing that. The second way is kind of alluding to what I was talking about earlier with the whole accessory unit stuff, right? If you use this, it's very big in California, but it's getting big everywhere right now. I think the Carolinas are doing it for sure. But the ability to have a single family home and build an accessory unit off the back or something like that, that cost of construction might be, a little bit on the front end, a little higher, but on the long term, it's really going to be worth it, right? Because you're maybe going to spend $150,000 to build a standalone accessory unit off the back of your house, or do a garage conversion or something like that. So on the front end, it's a big kick. But if you could get that $150,000 unit that you just built cash flowing you $1,500, $2,000 a month, if we go back to the old fashioned 1% rule, that's crushing the 1% rule in every way, shape, and form. So it's a great way to leverage it to basically build in equity and build in cash flow potential to the property. But as you said, it's something you want. With great power comes great responsibility, right? You want to make sure that we're not using that to over leverage ourselves. We want to use it in a smart way. That's what I teach. And what I always talk about is, how do we use this as an asset? I'm a big believer in, Robert Kiyosaki says it in the book. And I think it's a good way to kind of round it out. Robert Kiyosaki says in your book that your own house is a liability, not an asset. And I agree with him on that. I'd say for 99% of people, it's a empty canvas that people paint on with money every month. They over leverage. It's a really good savings vehicle at best, wealth preservation maybe at best. But an investment by definition is something that puts money in your pocket. Okay. A regular house for most people isn't that. I believe if you do it the 203K way and you start out and you do this a couple times, whatever, your first or next house absolutely can be an investment. It could be one of the best investments you ever make. You just need to treat it as such. Is it paying me to live there every month through house hacking? And then am I able to buy something that's undervalued? You do a value add opportunity, add square footage to it, add another unit off the back, build equity into it using the bank's money, so that immediately I'm capturing that equity that my parents waited 20, 30 years for.
Well, I like getting that $160,000 in equity that you got in the first 8 months of doing that deal. That's just an amazing story. Does 203K way allow you to do the work yourself, or does it have to be done by a licensed general contractor?
Great question. Licensed general contractor. And I always like to give the reason why. Reason why is this. They know that even if you are a general contractor, even if you're qualified to do it, remember, this is an income-based mortgage. They're qualifying you based on your income, W-2 earner, 1099 earner, whatever, right? It's income. They're looking at your debt to income ratio. It's not an asset-based lending. So they know that you have a full-time job that's allowing you to pay for this house. They know that if you're an accountant, but you're really handy, you're going to go to work. You're going to work all day because that's what you're paying for. That's how you're getting your salary. You're going to come home. You're going to eat dinner. You're going to play with your kids. You're going to put your kids to bed. And you thought that you were going to work on the bathroom, again, tiling it like me, and you're going to do it yourself to save money. And they know that what's going to happen is it's going to be Tuesday night. You're done with dinner. You put your kids to bed. It's 9 o'clock. And you're like, oh, I can't do it. I'm going to go to bed. The reason they do that is to protect you. I know you've done flips and you're very experienced with this. I even came from the construction background, and I've learned that anytime I tried to do it myself to save money, all it did was lose me in time and stress. So you can't do it yourself, but I always tell people, look at that as a positive, because trust me, if you go and think you're going to save money or save something out of it, you will be humbled. And if you don't believe me, go try it. And I would rather you learn from my mistakes.
Yes. And as we said, for goodness sakes, if you're starting out, work with somebody that's done it. Do you know about, typically FHA rates, mortgage rates are less than conventional rates.
Yeah.
Do you know about on average how much less a 203K rate would be, say, from a conventional rate?
So with my lending team, what we've seen very recently is it's truly about the same. It's about the same as a regular FHA rate. You're talking maybe an eighth or a quarter point more. And usually we do that in order to favor something else. But no, they're pretty much the same as so if you see what an FHA rate is, you could expect it to be that or maybe an eighth of a point higher. It's really about the same.
Got you. We're going to wrap up, Matthew, here with my last question, and that is, what is your coaching and your teaching services look like for people that really want to learn more? We told them how to get in touch with you, but are there different levels to it? How do they learn all about this?
Sure. So like I said, I made it my mission to just put as much information out there as possible on my YouTube, everything like that. I do work with clients personally, though. I do have a coaching program and process. I work with people, and my guarantee when I work with them is I work with them as long as it takes to get that first 203K deal done so they can springboard into the next. They can apply at the 203kway.com/apply. And basically the way it works is, like you said, I put the information out there. They could do it. It's not like I try to hide it. But if you want to do it, like you said, with raising private money, you want to make sure someone's hanging out behind you. I always say, if you're learning how to fly a helicopter, you don't fly a helicopter alone. You usually have a co-pilot that's flown 100,000 hours next to you, not because you can't do it alone, but because there's a lot at stake, and you want to make sure that for sure that there's someone just looking over your shoulder, and make sure you're not doing anything crazy, and really making sure you're doing it in the best way possible. Right. I'm very glad I make that heart surgery analogy. I'm very glad that anyone that would be working on my heart's probably spent thousands and thousands of hours learning under someone else that has done it in many ways before they handed off the reins. So that's the way I do it. I make it accessible to everybody. And, at the end of the day, they just have to be the right fit in the position to do it. I'm very hands-on with it because, as you said, I did this for myself, and I've been able to do it myself, help my cousins do it. My friends do it. And one of the coolest things about in real estate for me has been it's really cool to flip a house and get a six-figure paycheck on it and buy rental properties, and it's great and it is fulfilling, but there's nothing more fulfilling than helping someone do it, seeing it, how it changes their trajectory. Like you said, from your private money clients that came back to you and said, I'm able to, travel now, see my grandkids all the time. Man, seeing what I've been able to be a small part in and help people with changing their whole financial future, breaking generational curses, being able to be the person that helped them buy their first home when no one in their family's ever bought a home before. It is extremely, extremely gratifying. And that's why I keep doing it. It's just, I think everyone needs to know about this, and I'm going to keep helping people as long as I can to make sure that they could do the same.
That is fantastic. Well, I tell you, Matthew, I can't thank you enough for coming on to join me here on Raising Private Money. One more time, of course, all this is in the show notes, but you can get up and learn all about this from Matthew one-on-one at www.the203kway.com, and also his Instagram contact information is instagram.com/the203kway. Thank you so much, Matthew. What an inspiration you are. And I love your heart and I love your spirit. God bless you.
Jay, likewise, my friend. Thank you so much. God bless.
All right. Listen, if this episode has changed the way that you think about finding deals and structuring deals, and more importantly, funding deals, the 203K way, don't keep it to yourself. What Matthew has shared today proves something very, very important. And that is, on this kind of funding, you don't need perfect credit. You don't need deep pockets. You don't need traditional financing to get started the 203K way. You need the right strategy, the right structure, and the confidence to have better conversations about money, like we talked about here. So here's my ask. If you got value from today's episode, follow my podcast, Raising Private Money, subscribe, leave a review, give me 5 stars, because it's those reviews that help us reach more real estate investors who are stuck, frustrated, and only one breakthrough away from their next deal. And share this episode with one other person that you hear them saying, I just don't have the money to do the deal. This just might be the episode that changes everything for them that you share the episode with. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority. This is Raising Private Money. And I'll see you right here on the next episode where we'll continue to show you how to fund your real estate deals without relying on banks, hard money lenders, or anything traditional. God bless you. I'll see you right here on the next Raising Private Money.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/money guide. That's JCONNER.com/money guide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconner.com/money guide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.